I feel like we've rushed to Waterloo a bit quickly. I really wanted to know what Wellington was doing in the meantime. I mean, I assume he was just, okay, I'm going to nip back to Britain or whatever and get the army together. Like, what was his preparations prior to Waterloo?
Well, as I say, there was the Congress of Vienna, so he was personally in Europe anyway.
Yeah, right.
And there was all sorts of.
But did we have an army? I suppose we had an army on the continent.
Yeah.
Right. And so he just takes that army.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. When we'd heard that Napoleon had escaped, and he starts his travel up through France because he lands on the French Riviera at the very bottom of France and travels all the way up north. And when it becomes clear that the various marshals, like Ney, been sent to bring him back to Paris in an iron cage and have failed to do so. But while all that's going on,
his closest companions would have defected to his side and not this puppet king that we've installed. Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous. Because
it takes him about 3 months to do all this. It's not that quick. Yeah. Like I say, 100 days. The 100 days more or less effectively ends with that Waterloo.
Yeah.
So there's a 100-day period there. So in that sort of 3 months or so, we gather our forces and we know he's coming north. We know he's obviously going to march on Paris. So we coalesce our men in Brussels or in Belgium.
Right.
Wellington comes back from Vienna to Brussels because also, it's a classic thing, we know that if for whatever reason we forced us out, we're probably from Antwerp. Right. We'll probably bounce back to England if he does something brilliant. He never did. But
he might have done.
You're right.
Yeah. So
that's really what he did. We knew it was coming.
Right.
He'd been in Paris for a while. He'd got to Paris, reinstalled his monarchy, formed a government, and then marched north to Brussels. So we sort of know it's coming. We absolutely know it's coming. Like I say, 100 days is a fair bit of time, actually. It's not like he escaped Elba and 2 days later he's in Paris. 4 days later he's trying to attack us at Belgium. No, it was
Okay.
That's really. So by 1:30 on the day of the battle, Napoleon decides to try and force the issue at Le Haye-Saint, the second village, and he attacks it with about 16,000 infantry, a full-blooded assault. Doesn't actually quite take it, but he completely surrounds it and nearly wipes out the garrison there, and pushes on forward towards our line. And that's quite a dangerous moment. All the historians of the battle feel like if that had pushed through, we may well have been in trouble. It's at that point when Wellington decides to unleash his cavalry, or the Scots Greys, where they quite literally ride grey horses. And it was a sort of very famous. There's a famous painting of the charge of the Scots Greys, and they do send the infantry packing there. But Napoleon counters them with his lancers, the French cavalry.
Yeah.
Or Napoleon said, quote, "Those terrible grey horses, how they fight." But what they did the classic thing, centuries thing, of they push away this infantry attack and become drunk on that victory.
Chase after them?
Try and crash straight into the main French lines and get cut to pieces, essentially. A retreat is called, but a lot of them are cut down during that recall. And the last giant great cavalry charge, not the last one, there was still cavalry charge in World War I think.
Yeah.
But the last giant one ever done.
So, I mean, this is probably like 20,000 men or something, right?
Yeah, it was loads, thousands and thousands of horse. Yeah. And it sort of fell foul of the thing you always worry about your cavalry falling foul of. It just did it again. It's like, how many centuries do we have to have before the cavalrymen will learn?
Yeah.
They just never learn, basically. Cavalrymen essentially, not all of them always, but often was the case.
And it's always notable when it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Like at Calais or Alexander at Gaugamela and things like that. These are actually, but they're always battle-winning maneuvers. If you can bring your cavalry back, you've won the battle, basically.
Quite possibly, yeah. Or sometimes if the cavalry charge of heavy horse is truly irresistible and they start rolling up a flank, then again you've won the day. So it's not...
Like a hussar charge.
Yeah. So again, there are many, many books written about Waterloo. It's one of the most famous battles of all time, certainly if you're an Englishman or European, Western European. So you could go into it in crazy, crazy detail, but as we've already done it a bit, I'll sort of skate over a bit. One thing to say is that Napoleon, in the middle of the day, feels ill and goes and has a bit of a snooze. Goes into a barn behind the lines and sleeps for a bit, an hour or so. And during that moment, Ney, who's the head of the cavalry, thinks he sees a chink in our line, or is fooled into thinking that, and orders a giant cavalry charge against us. But Wellington has done that classic thing where the main body of his men are behind the ridge. So when the cavalry get there, they're actually confronted with lots of squares. Most people know what squares are, but I'll put an image up so everyone can see exactly what it is.
Solid ranks of infantry who have their not pike, what is it? The bayonets. Facing forward, so the horses won't charge into them, and then they're at point blank range, so they can just get blasted. So
the square, by the early 19th century, the square was a brilliant foil against cavalry. It was really good. It was extremely, extremely rare that cavalry, by the early 19th century anyway, would break into a well-formed, well-ordered square and break it apart and kill them all.
And when it did happen, it was memorialised in song and poem.
Right. So in the Peninsular War, the British cavalry did do it to the French like once or twice. And again, it was sort of incredible. It's like, wow, you actually did it for once. So it's not like it never happened, but it was quite rare. What a great line from Wellington around this time of the battle. He said of Napoleon, "Damn the fellow, he is a mere pounder after all." So he thought or hoped perhaps that Napoleon might do something sort of truly unique or imaginative or something, and he just didn't. Again, he didn't have a good day. Old Boney didn't have a good day that day.
Yes, they go have a lie down. I mean, he probably had stomach cancer, so, you know.
I think he'd been up most of the night before in pain, so he was very tired. And, well, anyway, when he gets back, you can't believe what Ney's done.
So what happened to the cavalry, Ney? Well, half of it got massacred. Called a giant charge. Thought we could do it.
You had one job, not to get all the cavalry massacred. I'll leave you for 1 hour, and what do you do? Wellington himself had multiple horses shot out from under him, and was everywhere. And nearly everyone on his staff, I think nearly everyone on his staff was either killed or wounded, because he insisted on being right at the front to be able to see everything with his own eyeballs at all times and issue orders himself.
King micromanager must micromanage everything, even in the heat of the battle.
He was definitely within range of cancer. A couple of times during that portion of the battle, he had to take refuge inside a square himself. That's really, he's really close, really. Anyway, by about 6 p.m, things are becoming a bit worrisome from the French point of view, because the Prussians have turned up. If he's going to win the day, he needs to win it right now. So at one point he decides to send in the old guard, the last giant push of, hopefully an irresistible push of infantry columns. And
but Wellington's already figured out how to beat columns.
It just doesn't work. And he had a lot of men sort of laying in wait for them, essentially. He said, "The enemy made a desperate effort to force our centre near the farm of La Haye Sainte again. The farm, after a severe contest, was defeated. There's a few thousand men there, and I think only 42 survived, so they're basically wiped out.
Blimey.
But it wasn't enough, because when they pushed on forward into our line, we did stop them. Great line, Wellington said, 'Night or the Prussians must come.' He knew that without the Prussians' help, Napoleon could have pushed him off the field. But when the Prussians did arrive, finally, Napoleon had sent some sort of detachment out to try and slow them down, but they'd pushed through him. When he did arrive late in the afternoon, Napoleon basically couldn't make his mind up exactly what to do for a while. Not all that long, but he paused, he hesitated for a bit, perhaps half an hour. The historian Richard Holmes, the late great Richard Holmes, said, quote, half an hour's doubt was undoing a lifetime's achievement. And that just says it all.
Summarizes everything.
That just says it all. And at this point where Napoleon basically throws everything he's got left into the maelstrom, all his remaining artillery blasting away as much as they possibly could, Wellington said, quote, hard pounding this, gentlemen. Stand fast. We must not be beat.
So we're getting a good view of how things are from Napoleon's point of view. But what was it like from the British point of view, from Wellington? Because the French assault must have been bloody terrifying.
Yeah.
And so how are Wellington and the British doing at this point?
Right, well, he never lost his nerve. That's his classic thing, is that he never lost his nerve. Like that quote there, just stand fast. Another thing that perhaps gives you an idea of Wellesley's mindset is his second in command, Uxbridge, the Lord Uxbridge, Henry Paget, at one point, right near the end of the day, gets his leg blown off. You know that story?
Yeah.
And he's supposed to have said, by God, sir, I've lost my leg.
By God, sir, so you have.
Yeah, and he just turned and said that. Yeah. So it's like, again, his favourite horse, his charger, Copenhagen, he rode for some of the battle, but he sort of, when things got a bit too hot, he used other horses, and he had more than one shot out from under him. And yet he never lost his nerve, never lost his bottle. So it was always that sort of his mindset. But he knew it was extremely close. Like, at one point in the afternoon, he said, if the Prussians or night doesn't come, we are probably lost.
Yeah.
But yeah, quite a lot of the British regiments, from a lot of the day, just sort of had to stand there and just take the incoming artillery from the French. So it's sort of one of those exercises in nerve.
Yeah. And then you've got like various infantry charges, cavalry charges.
Like I say, the contest at La Haye Sainte was a bitter, bloody, like last stand, Alamo type deal. Yeah. Yeah, really bad.
Yeah.
I mean, the casualties, to give you an idea, the French lost something in the order of 33,000 men out of about 73. We lost something in the order of 22,000 men.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's atrocious.
It's a really bloody day. It really, really was.
But that's probably the worst Wellington's ever had.
Picton was killed. General Picton, one of Wellington's favourite, closest corps commanders.
Because didn't we have about 50,000 men, and we were waiting for like another 50,000 from the Prussians?
Yeah, in that ballpark. Well, we had about 30,000 men. The Dutch gave us about 17,000.
Yeah.
We had another 11,000 from Hanover.
Right.
Well, I mean, and the Prussians, I mean, there's 6,000 from Brunswick.
Right.
And Blucher had 50,000 of his own.
Yeah.
So once we got together,
we had the bigger army.
We had in the order of 120,000 men.
But while Blucher's absent from the field, we're actually being overwhelmed by a greater number of Frenchmen who seem to be really going for it.
Oh, yeah. It was all or nothing.
Yeah.
It was absolutely all or nothing. I mean, Napoleon knew that if he lost that battle, that was it. There would be nothing. There's nothing between the Allies and Paris again.
Yeah.
He had no second, because he'd got together all his army corps. He'd got together pretty much everything he had.
Yeah.
Within reason.
So I'm just trying to picture it from the British point of view, because it's just going to be constant musketry, charges, cavalry, thunder. The ground would have been rumbling under your feet, while booms in the distance, you'd see the and then boom, 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 boom around you. And then you just got the sort of just rows of French guys just shooting and charging and trying to pike you and stuff. And it just must have been absolute chaos, thundering chaos with people screaming all around you. It must have been prior to World War One. It's hard to think of anything worse than the Battle of Waterloo. 21,000 of the winners dead.
Yeah.
It's awful. That's atrocious.
There's a slaughter, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just the whole thing is just like this awful, awful day.
Sometimes when you get hit with a cannonball, it will sort of blow you apart, blow you to bits.
Yeah.
There's accounts I've read from Waterloo where someone get hit in the head with a cannonball and it just takes your head off entirely.
Yeah. Because the cannonball's quite big.
Yeah.
And when it's travelling at a few hundred miles an hour, it just obliterates a human being.
Sometimes they might use grape shot or something, but often they use just a big old cannonball.
Yeah, because it'll just crash through lines.
Yeah. Sometimes they'll come sort of skipping towards you.
Yeah.
It's not just one trajectory. Sometimes it would skip along. And there's a famous cavalryman's breastplate.
Yeah.
From Waterloo.
With just a huge hole.
Giant hole in the front and back of it.
Yeah.
Where a cannonball's just gone straight through him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just
a very
to,
bloody day.
Just to be clear, from the British side, and obviously from the French side as well, but like from the British side, you've got to stand and defend essentially a ridge, a muddy, wet, cold ridge, under just this constant bombardment and constant infantry fire and cavalry charges and screams of pain and you firing your own gun back at them. Like, it just, the sensory overload is awful on this day. And you've got to stand there, because if you run away, you're dead.
To watch the full video, please become a premium member at lotuseaters.com.